Manchester United 2, Lask Linz 1. But before we dive into the match review, which was a pretty boring game, the match reaction, we got to do a little bit of transfer update to just sum up what's been happening today. If you're late to the party or you're just joining us to find out what's been going on, I mean, look, it's been heavily dominated by Jadon Sancho, a lot of conflicting reports. Obviously, we saw the briefing from certain members of the press, especially the British press yesterday, saying that there isn't a deal in place and that Manchester United haven't agreed personal terms with Jadon Sancho, and also they haven't agreed a deal, more importantly, with Dortmund. But what we got tonight was Michael Zorc, the Dortmund sporting director, who basically said they expect Jadon Sancho to be in a training camp with them and to finish this and to play the season at Borussia Dortmund. But Fabrizio Romano steps in and says he also added, which we didn't actually get, which right here, I don't expect any difficulties. Jadon has to accept that. He's a very pleasant and fair guy. So he said that's what Zorc's saying in terms of Jadon Sancho. He doesn't expect him to, manufacture a move or go on strike or stuff. But what Romano says here is he added, we want 120 million to sell Sancho. Normal. So basically, it's Borussia Dortmund and Manchester United in the standoff regarding the fee. That's pretty much where we was yesterday, and it's rolled on today. I mean, a lot of people were going into meltdown because Michael Zorc basically made it seem like there's just going to be no sale of Sancho. That isn't what he said. Well, he said there's no sale of Sancho unless it's for 120 million. So you've just got two big clubs beating their chest, trying to get the best deal for their players, for their club within their own right. And like I said to Mark during the team selection, it's all about posturing. If you're doing business and you've got something you want to sell, are you going to accept the first offer that comes your way? No, you're not. Are you even going to accept the second or the third? If you go down to the market and you're bartering, you go, how much for this, mate? Tenner. Oh, I'll give you 9. I'll take 8. I'll give you 750. That's where it goes. You don't just go in straight away and go, right, done. But what is really interesting is the fact that Ole Solskjaer has said that we're looking at all transfers. We're not going to talk about individual players, especially players that aren't ours. So he didn't deny it. He didn't deny that we're in talks with Jadon Sancho or anything like that. But obviously, he's not going to confirm it. But with Alexis Sanchez being made officially an Inter Milan player this evening, I think tomorrow's going to be really interesting in how it develops. We've freed up the wages. Maybe that could potentially help us fund more so the transfer deal for Sancho. But we can see that Manchester United are not willing to part with 120 million pounds right now, or euros, 120 million euros right now, which is understandable in the climate which we're in. But having said that, there's going to come a point where Manchester United have to call the bluff or show the hand, as they say. Both players need to show their hand. Dortmund might get to a point where they're like, flipping out, Man United still haven't tabled the official bid. We've started our season now. We need money. Dortmund want to bring in their players as well. Dortmund are a selling club. They make good money on their players. They brought in Jude Bellingham. I know they sold Hakimi, but they're going to want to strengthen as well. So Bellingham was the best part of 30 million, which was probably their Hakimi money. But I'm guessing they're not going to want an unhappy Jadon Sancho then. Jadon Sancho, I don't think he's going to force remove and refuse to play. He wants to come to United and United want him. But there's going to be a time when they're going to have to show their hand. Also, the same thing goes for Man United though. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants this player. The whole fan base is embroiled in Jadon Sancho, and we definitely want him. 100%. Every Manchester United fan, bar an absolute tiny minority who I haven't really heard even saying it, but there always is someone out there who probably goes, nah, Jadon Sancho, I'd leave it. But every Man United fan pretty much wants him. The club are going to have a very interesting decision to make when they show their hand at what point, because we got the next season starting fairly quickly, early September, depending on how far we go in the Europa League. At what point do Manchester United go, oh, bloody hell, here, just have the money? Do you know what I mean? So, or we could be in a situation where they've agreed. Manchester United have got their heads around the fact that it's going to cost 120 million. They're just trying to make sure that they can structure the deal in a feasible way that reflects the current financial climate we're in post-COVID. Well, I say post-COVID, COVID's still around, unfortunately. So it's a battle of wit. It's a bit of a chess match. It's like going into a car dealership and not trying to barter. You're just not going to do it, are you? And also Manchester United, while this is going on, are not going to come out and say, well, we're offering 120 million, but, we're trying to do this or we're trying to do that. It's just not how business is done, especially in these big deals. Me, on a personal note, if you're asking me, I still think it will happen. I still think it will happen. I think I don't know, I just think it's gone too far in already. And I think it would be massive for Manchester United to turn away from this deal, knowing what Sancho would potentially give us and knowing how much Solskjaer wants the player and knowing how much the player wants to come to Manchester United. Do you know what I mean? So they better have a very, very good contingency plan if they're not going to go through with this deal. That's all I'll say on that. Also, another bit of a transfer update. There's a lot of rumours going around that Gabriel, the defender from Lille, is actually going to be going to Arsenal, which is weird. You look at the Arsenal situation today, they announced 55 redundancies, which, look, you never want to see people losing their jobs, and it just shows you how COVID is affecting different teams, and, that's not great. But if you think about certain players that at Arsenal that are on huge, Mesut Ozil's on 350 grand a week, I'm sure they could have made a few tweaks to keep 55 staff employed. But away from that, how much money are they going to have to spend? They're announcing redundancies at, I'm not going to be disrespectful and say low-level staff because everyone's got their role, but they're not playing staff. They could be, they're obviously admin staff or whatever. They're not playing staff or coaching staff, I don't believe. But at what point, how much, are Arsenal going to be able to afford 20, 25 million? They're looking at Willian on a free because, again, the budget, maybe a loan for Coutinho. So, we are in the lookout for a centre-back, and there was strong rumours that Manchester United were in for Gabriel, and we spoke to his representatives. His representatives are over here in England listening to offers, basically. So it'd be very interesting to see if Arsenal come in and nab him. It looked like Gabriel, from what I saw, I'd only done a quick little bit of YouTube research. He looked quick, he looked strong, left-footed, looked like something that type of player is what we needed. Again, if it doesn't end up happening, it'll be interesting to see what contingency plans we have, if any. Because another thing which I mentioned to Mark earlier today on our stream is that actually, if we're struggling to spend the money up front on Jadon Sancho and we can only afford 80 million up front or 90 million and then installments, what is the rest of the transfers going to look like? If we want at least 3 players in this window and Sancho's going to be the mega star of it, that's going to take up a huge chunk. If Manchester United are saying it's unrealistic to spend 100 to 120 million on one player, does that mean that it's coming out of the rest of the pot? What's the pot like for the rest of the players that we're trying to get into? Jack Grealish for 80 million, no chance. We're not going to spend 120 million on Sancho and then 80 million on Grealish and another 50 million on centre back. It's just not going to happen. So the Gabriel price was around 20 to 25 million. It's somewhere in between that region was being brandished around. So that looks like it was our budget for a centre back. So it's whether there's a lot of value in the market if they can find another option for that. It'd be very interesting to see what happens there. So if you're just joining us, that's your latest on Jadon Sancho, your latest on Gabriel from Lille, and also Alexis Sanchez has left the club officially. He has gone. On tonight's game, though, look, it was a poor game. It was boring. We played really bad in that first half. But having said that, we were still getting into positions to be able to make something happen. But Lask made the best chance of the first half, hitting the crossbar with a header. But we got into positions that, I thought Matto started off quite poorly, but he ended up with 2 assists, to be honest. So you can't really say fairer than that. I thought McTominay, look, I think he's come back off his injury. I know he just before lockdown, he scored that goal against City, which we was all ecstatic about. But after Project Restart, what did he do? He started against Tottenham, didn't he? And he wasn't good, was he? And since then, it's like he's just struggling because he's not getting that continuous run of games. And today, I just thought he was way off the boil. Good to see Jesse Lingard score. Surprised he stayed on. He didn't stay on for me. And Fred got taken off quite early as well. I would have definitely taken off McTominay over Fred at the time. Dan James, just making the wrong decisions, not quite at it. I thought Agallo fed off scraps, to be honest. Couldn't really judge him. Fosu-Mensah grew into the game, but he started off poorly. Maguire, a couple of lackadaisical moments, but wasn't amazing. Brandon Williams, I don't think, was particularly great. It was just a really poor performance. But at the end of the day, we got the win. Good to see Jesse score. And you see Martial come straight off the bench, score straight away. And to be fair to Mata, when he plays with better players, he does produce. And that was a good little bit of interchange with Mata and Martial to let him go through. But I think the one thing what we did learn from that, I was always sort of quite skeptical about next season starting so quickly and just how do we attack the Europa League. Obviously, we secured the Champions League spot. How do we attack the Europa League? But look, I think if we don't play our strongest 11, the chances of winning it become drastically smaller. You know, there's not going to be many players there tonight, if any, who are going to be able to knock Ollie's door tomorrow morning saying, what are you saying about Monday? Can I get a start? Do you know what I mean? Maguire is obviously a constant. Brandon Williams is obviously a constant right now because we're stretched at left fullback. But other than that, I mean, Jesse, he played well, but I don't know if he's done enough to start against Copenhagen. If he does, then it will be with the rest of the other starters. You know, I expect Pogba to come back in. I expect Bruno, Rashford, Martial to come back in, Greenwood to all come back in. And like Saeed says often, get the game won, and then you take your players off. But you know what? We got to go for it. Go for a trophy. We're in it to win it. I was very skeptical before, and I was like, maybe do a bit of a mix and match, but it's not going to work for me. It'd be great to get the trophy, roll on Monday night against Copenhagen, and I think we'll get the job done. I really do. And then we get into the semi-finals of the Europa League. We're 3 games away from some silverware, and I think Ollie's going to want to win it. And also, he already knows what it's like when he uses his second stream. You can see it from today. He's done it throughout the Premier League after Project Restart, where that he just wasn't using the bench or very reluctant to use the bench, or could see for himself when he did use the bench, the drop off in quality was just too big. My man in the match, I'm going to give it to Jesse Lingard, I suppose. Nice to see him score. Good little one-touch play, got on the ball quite well, took his goal well. But in the end, Matt had a really poor game at parts. I was thinking he was having an absolute nightmare, but he finished with 2 assists. So you could say out of a really poor game, Matt had a big influence in the end and had 2 assists. So I wouldn't argue against giving it to him. But for me, I would definitely give it to Jesse Lingard out of a really poor game, bad bunch. So roll on Monday night. I'll see you guys then. Make sure you check out my YouTube channel, The Flex, and follow me across all of my socials at FlexUTD. And more importantly, make sure you're following United Stand across all the social platforms, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. Smash a like on the video. I will see you guys very, very soon. I'm going to go do a play.